and more electronic devices are being searched at the U.S. border. That is according to new data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The numbers show a sharp increase in those searches, up more than 21% from the previous quarter and up 23% over the same period last year. Zool Suleman is an immigration lawyer and founder at the firm Suleman and Company, and he's here to make sense of what this means for Canadians and anyone else going back and forth from the States. Hello, Zool. How are you?
I'm fine, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, what do you make of the fact that these searches are becoming more frequent?
Well, it's not surprising. It's been made clear by the current administration in the United States that they want to have more of a security profile. They want to scrutinize people who enter and also leave the country. And electronic devices contain so much information about us. So that's kind of a window into their ability
Mhm.
to assess people who come to visit, work in the United States.
And I mean, it sounds incredibly invasive, but how extensively can U.S. officials search electronic devices?
Well, they do have broad discretion when they're letting people come into the country. So they can look at your electronic device, they can ask you to unlock it. If they are concerned, they can copy the entire hard drive, all the data on your phone. And then that data can be shared by various and American agencies. So it can be very invasive. I think listeners need to remember that over the last 20 odd years, our phones have become our personal lives. They've gotten stronger. We're carrying a computer,
Hmm.
not just a phone. And so your personal images, your text images, whatever you do on social media, your emails, your business documents, what have you been searching, all of that can become open to US authorities if they decide to look at your phone or copy your data.
Well, do we know what they do with the data if they do copy everything?
Well, it's very hard to know. This is a part of the American border profile and their various agencies. What we've heard anecdotally, what we've heard from civil liberties organizations in the United States, is this data makes its way into who knows where. It's hard to know how it's going to be utilized. And increasingly, the United States is scrutinizing this data before they make a decision to admit somebody from Canada or other parts of the world. So people should be, I think, cognizant that this data could end up anywhere. If there's no problem on the first time you go in and they look at your phone, there could be a problem if you make an immigration application, a student application, or on subsequent trips to the United States, because data lives. And of course, with artificial intelligence, this data could go anywhere.
Do we have any sense of what specifically they might be looking for?
Well, certainly, what's become clear, at least in terms of the public profile, they're worried about people, obviously, with criminal records or people who perhaps pose a threat to the United States. But that's a very small proportion.
Hmm.
I think increasingly what the government is making clear is they're actually worried about your politics, what you say, who you hang out with, what you believe, what you write. More and more, there's like a values test before you enter the United States. And I think everybody should be a bit concerned about that.
And is that, when you say values test, is that in a sense saying whether or not you are for or against U.S. President Trump?
I'm not sure that it's that specific. It could be whether you are for or opposed to certain policies, be they around life choices, around democracy, around fiscal policy, around immigration policy. It's a much broader, I think, net than just whether you support the current president
Okay.
or not.
The U.S. gets to control its borders. Is there, any legal or even a constitutional case against searches like this, or is this completely legal?
Well, it's under US law. So the question really becomes is what is the United States permitting its border and security and policing officials to, what are they permitted to do? And what we're seeing certainly in the last few months is there's a huge escalation of the permissions that these agencies have to do what they want. And of course, they take their guidance from their supervisors and ultimately the commander in chief, who is the president. So everybody's watching watching the news. They know the kinds of signals that the US government is sending. So I think it's a time to be very vigilant because the ability of a Canadian to appeal anything is almost nil. If they are, for instance, denied, the denial will show on the government records if they try to go a second time
Mm.
or make any other application. If they're on US soil and they are detained, they can certainly try to contact a US lawyer. And if they're detained long term, as we've seen recently, more and more Canadians are being detained, it really starts to become a consular matter
Mhm.
where you try to, engage the Canadian consulate to help you to get back to Canada or get out of jail in America.
If I was crossing the border and they asked to look at my phone, what if I just said no?
Well, the no can be interpreted in many ways. So, first of all, are you on Canadian soil or not? If you're pre-clearing at Vancouver Airport or Montreal, if you say no, they could make a notation on your file that you're uncooperative or you're hiding something.
Mm.
They could perhaps hold you for a little while, but you can walk away. So that's if you're on Canadian
Mm-hmm.
soil. But if you're on US soil, they can not only make a notation, but they could possibly detain you. They could seize your phone. They might not be able to unlock it, and it could lead to all kinds of adverse consequences. So I think people need to understand we're kind of in a new regime right now,
Mm-hmm.
and things are changing very quickly.
Zool, you also work as general counsel to the Vancouver nonprofit StopRacialProfiling.ca. What do you know about how, I suppose, identity might affect what happens to people crossing the border into the U.S.?
Well, since 2004, in the 9/11 period, the securitization of the border has been significant. Then, of course, we remember the first Trump government where there was a Muslim travel
Mm-hmm.
ban, and now, of course, the second Trump government. So I've been working for about more than 2 decades looking at the impacts of kind of security screenings at ports of entry, along with other kind of legislation. And what we do see is that if you're racialized, if you're Muslim, if you present in a number of intersectional ways in how you dress and how you look, you can be profiled. And so the impacts of these rules are being felt by racialized people, by Muslims, by others. So I think it's important to keep in mind that while this is happening right now, it's part of a multi-decade approach towards, targeting people, and they need to be careful. So at stopracialprofiling.ca and stopislamophobia.ca, we're an advocacy and research group that's studying the very kinds of questions you are asking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a part of our project for the last almost 25 years.
What is your advice, Zool, to people that are thinking about maybe, crossing the border right now?
Think twice
Mm.
and then think again. I think you should be careful. The idea that you're just hopping across the border needs to be really examined. Not only is the US border being securitized and scrutinized, the same thing is actually happening on the Canadian side. So that border is not as simple as just kind of heading down to get 4 liters of milk or filling up gas. I really think people need to be a bit careful, at least until there's a much better sense of the long-term approach
Mm-hmm.
of the US government.
Zool, chilling, but I really appreciate the
Well, I'm
information.
not trying to be chilling. I think of course
No,
people will keep and go and come, but of course people will behave the way they do. I mean, in terms of absolute numbers, the numbers aren't that huge.
sure.
Percentage wise, they are,
But
but it's
this is
good to
something we haven't
know.
had to talk about before.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember having these interviews, with the first Trump administration. I remember having these interviews soon after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a kind of an arc of securitization going on. It's not the same old, same old. The world is changing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think our neighbor is changing, and we need to be more vigilant and thoughtful about what we're doing.
Well, and I think thoughtful about what we're doing is something that many people need to remember. And it's so important that they have all of the information. So I really
Yes.
appreciate you laying out the facts so succinctly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
You have a lovely weekend.
You too.
Zool Suleman is an immigration lawyer and founder at the firm Suleman and Company.